the Championship Racing Network.
Drivers, start your engines. Pull those belts down tight one more time, warm up those tires, hit your marks, and let's go racing, boys and girls. Nascar, Indycar, Formula One, Formula E, and NHRA Racing Talk. This is the Championship Racing Network. Now here's your hosts, Steve West and Matt Nicholson, with producer John Myers.
Indeed, the gang is all here this morning. Producer John rejoins us for the first time in a few weeks. We get to talk more about drivers from overseas coming to the United States to race. We've been talking about that over the last couple of years. It seems to be becoming more and more prevalent. Those worried that with a young, unproven lineup, Stewart-Haas Racing would have a hard time with sponsors? Yeah, you're being proven wrong. How did the 18-year-old do in his Formula One debut? Got a hot shot coming to NASCAR as well, about that same age. We'll talk about him. $1 Million Challenge for IndyCar coming up next week. How's that all going to play out? We'll give you the rundown on the format of it. We're also going to dive into Smoke's Top Fuel debut. And like we were talking about, when it comes to youngster, got this hot shoe kid coming in on a development deal to run NASCAR. We got a whole lot more coming along as well as we get ready to get into this week's edition of CRN right after this.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network. Four tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Hey, welcome in. Steve West, Matt Nicholson, and yes, producer John in the house. Sleepy.
Morning.
But he's here.
That's right.
There are 3 of us. There are only going to be 3 of us for the first hour, and that's because Matt's abandoning us.
Duty calls.
Yeah.
Talk to us about
Gotta
it.
go that little path known as 59, 24, 75, 81, 40 up to that little bull ring in northeast Tennessee.
Color me green.
Headed up to the truck race tonight.
Yeah.
Gotta go do a little work.
You get to play spotter tonight.
Not spot.
Not quite spotter.
Not
Okay.
quite. No. We'll just see when I get there because it's really unknown what I'm going to be doing.
Oh, okay. He's just been
going
called
for
in to help.
The extra set of hands.
All right. Hey, can't complain about that. Sometimes you got to just put all hands on deck.
And there's still that possibility I may possibly be gone next week. I won't know for sure until probably Monday or Tuesday.
We will find out. In the meantime, we'll cross bridges as we need to. And let's take a quick look back at last week. Last week, busy weekend. Basically, almost every series that we cover was in action last weekend. Almost. We start off with Formula One, where 2023 meet 2024. You'll look awfully similar and familiar. You remember 2023? You know, when Max Verstappen basically won everything that there was to win and dominated to a third straight title?
Yep.
2024 is now 2 races in, and Max Verstappen's now 2 for 2. He started on the pole, got out in front of Charles Leclerc off the start, and never looked back, claimed yet another win. Like race number 1 of the season in Abu Dhabi, he bested his Red Bull teammate Sergio Perez, this time by more than 13 seconds.
Only 13?
What am I missing here? This is the same car, right?
Virtually.
What am I missing? What's the difference between Max Verstappen and Sergio Perez?
Clean air.
I guess. Good night almighty. Charles Leclerc finished third, followed by Oscar Piastri, Fernando Alonso. You got George Russell. Fill-in driver Oliver Behrman claimed 7th in his Formula One debut. We'll get back to that during Formula One news later in the show. Lando Norris, Lewis Hamilton, and Nico Hülkenberg claiming the first points of the season for Haas F1. So here we are, 2 races in, and Max Verstappen's already out to a 51-36 point lead over his Red Bull teammate, Sergio Perez. Charles Leclerc is third with 28. 18 for George Russell, Oscar Piastri, 16, 15 for Carlos Sainz. Got a dozen points and a tie between Fernando Alonso and Lando Norris. Lewis Hamilton holds 8. Oliver Behrman, 1 race in, sits 10th in points with 6. It's early. A lot of changes still going to be happening.
Yeah.
Constructors' Cup battle, Red Bull out to a fairly dominant 87 points already, with Ferrari holding 49. 28 for McLaren, Mercedes 26, Aston Martin 13. Haas F1's got 1, and you still got 4 teams with no points on the season so far. They include Williams, Sauber, VCarb. Again, for those of you that are new to the show, this is what we are calling the Visa Cash App RB team, the Red Bull sister organization. And Alpine sitting at the bottom. And the main reason we're talking about Alpine sitting at the bottom, those guys are put in order by the best finish of the 2 races of at least one of their cars. Alpine is not doing well this year.
No, not at all.
All those changes that you made last year and in the offseason, they ain't working.
Nope.
Oops. Xfinity Series then got things rolling out west in Phoenix, Arizona. The laps began to wind down. Justin Allgaier out front. 5 laps to go, and then disaster. Left rear tire went flat, caused him to spin out, slamming the outside wall, and that ended his day, unfortunately. The beneficiary? Chandler Smith. Chandler Smith inherited the lead off the restart, bested his Joe Gibbs Racing teammate Sheldon Creed to the overtime finish and gets the win. There's a lot of people that were complaining about this because Chandler Smith was leading earlier in the race and caused a wreck, which took out a whole bunch of potential contenders.
Well, that...
And they're blaming him. I'm going to say it that way. They're blaming him.
They're in the wrong. They don't need to be blaming him because John Hunter Nemechek, for lack of a better term, didn't hold his line, and he got in the wall, and he bounced off of the wall trying to save it, and that caused Chandler to get into him.
There you go.
I don't think that's all on Chandler.
Yeah. More John Hunter Nemechek.
Yeah.
Smith wins. Jesse Love actually did jump up to second in that overtime. Creed finished third. Austin Hill fourth, Cole Custer fifth, and Shane Van Gisbergen with a nice start to his season. He was sixth. Brandon Jones, Parker Kligerman, Sammy Smith, and Anthony Alfredo. You got 2 drivers locked in the playoffs now. They are Austin Hill with 2 wins, Chandler Smith with the win at Phoenix. The others that are in on points are the Stewart-Haas Racing twins of Cole Custer and Riley Erbst. And if you look at them side by side, they don't look like twins, so don't think much of that comment. Jesse Love, Sheldon Creed, AJ Allmendinger. Justin Allgaier, Brandon Jones, Sammy Smith, Parker Kligerman, Anthony Alfredo. And Anthony Alfredo is sitting 2 points over Ryan Sieg for that 12th and final playoff spot. We're only 4 races into the season so far. Again, a lot of things can change here. Yeah. Sunday dawned. Racing began down in Florida. Indycar taken to the streets of St. Petersburg down there. Now, last year, Joseph Newgarden was dominant on the oval tracks. He won all the oval track races. But he just couldn't find a way to break through when it came to road or street courses, and that kept him from the 2023 title.
Well,
that would have been his third. His team apparently found something in the offseason. They worked really hard, and Newgarden came out, led 92 of the 100 laps run, and he was out front by 7.9 seconds when the checkered flag flew. Welcome to a street course win, Joseph Newgarden.
Yep.
If he's as dominant on the road course, on the oval courses as he was last year, and now can do this, watch out.
Yeah, for sure.
Early in the year, we know. But hey.
For sure.
Just saying. Joseph Newgarden threw down a gauntlet there. Pato O'Ward held off Scott McLaughlin for second place. Then you got Will Power in fourth. Colton Herta, fifth. Then Alex Palou, Felix Rosenquist, Alexander Rossi, Scott Dixon, Renus VK filling out your top 10. Your points race mirrors the finish, so we're not going to go over that at this time. I will state the rookie points because that's obviously different. It's calculated a little bit different as well. Kiffin Simpson leads rookie points with 16. Tom Blomqvist has 13. Christian Rasmussen 9. Colin Braun 8. Linus Lundqvist has 7. Kyle Larson is in there listed as a rookie because technically he is, and he has 0 points, and that's going to be 0 until the Indy 500, and then whatever points, assuming he gets any, at the Indy 500 will be basically his total for the year. So It's not like Kyle Larson has a shot at winning Rookie of the Year, but that's your entire rookie rundown. We'll keep you updated on it throughout the course of the year. Next up, NHRA season opener, wrapping things up with the Amalie Motor Oil Gator Nationals. Top Fuel came down to a battle between Billy Torrance and Sean Langdon. Torrance gets the jump off the light, but then it was all Langdon who got by just after the Christmas tree, rolls onto the win. 3.711 ET at 335.40 miles per hour. Nice run. Mm-hmm. Funny car J.R. Todd makes it to the finals, takes on Austin Prock. Todd a hair quicker off the light, but Prock had to feather the throttle, gives me an easy way of putting that, gives Todd the win, a 3.889 ET, 329.10 miles per hour. That's his 10th win in funny car competition. It was Erica Enders taking on Christian Quadra in the Pro Stock Car Finals. Enders caught Quadra sleeping at the light, cruises to the win, 6.494 ET, 211.93 miles per hour. Realizing also that Quadra had to shut it off at the line with a bad tire shake, she just kind of backed off a little bit as well. He ended up crossing the line. Engine shot off, 18.386 ET at 39.84 miles per hour. Nice little Sunday evening drive. Enders gets her 48th win in Pro Stock Car, claims her first Gator Nationals win, though. One would have thought she would have had a Gator Nationals.
I would have thought she would have had more.
Yep. We were curious about the whole Ellie Tonglet versus Gage Herrera deal because Gage Herrera's got an amazingly lightning quick reaction time, and Ellie Tonglet's the same way. Well, Gage Herrera picked up where he left off last year as well. Remember, Gage Herrera won all but one event in Pro Stock Motorcycle last year in 2023. 2024 starts off in the same manner. He makes it to the finals against Matt Smith, who actually had the better reaction time. But that was it. After that, Herrera was leading after the Christmas tree, powers on to the win, 6.636 ET, 204.39 miles per hour on a motorcycle. That's 12 wins, by the way. 12 wins in 13 final rounds for Gage Herrera.
That's nuts.
I'm not sure who's more dominant right now. Is it him or Max Verstappen?
I'm going to say flip a quarter on that one.
He really pretty much could. Early points, you got Sean Langdon leading Top Fuel over Steve Torrance by 39-44 over Billy Torrance. Then you got Antron Brown 49 back and 65 back, I should say, and fifth is Mike Salinas. Funny Cars led by J.R. Todd, 8 up on Austin Prock, 30 up on a Bob Tasca the third, 40 over Chad Green, and 55 up on Ron Capps. Erica Enders with the win is 21 up on Christian Quadra early in points, 48 up on Greg Anderson. Dallas Glenn in fifth, 72 back. 48 over Greg Anderson and Dallas Glenn in a tie, 48 back. And in fifth, 72 back in a tie, Jed Coughlin Jr. and Aaron Stanfield. And then Gage Herrera obviously out to a quick lead in Pro Stock Motorcycle, 24 up on Matt Smith. Ellie Tonglet got close but didn't quite make the finals. He's 50 back. Angie Smith's 53 back and 71 back. Steve Johnson after the first event of 2024. And then we go back out to Phoenix Raceway for the Cup Series. They wrap pretty much the busiest weekend of the year so far. We're going to get busier. Don't worry about it. After 3 races, people were kind of wondering whether or not Ford and/or Toyota had just gotten things so badly wrong with the new bodies. Well, Toyota borrowed a phrase that you're probably familiar with from college football. Not so fast, my friend. Christopher Bell got out front when the checkers were shown, and Toyota drivers led 298 of the 312 laps on the day in a dominating showing. How dominant? Well, what's the flagship Toyota team? Joe Gibbs Racing, right?
JGR.
For the first time ever in a NASCAR Cup Series event, 4 teammates each led at least 50 laps. All 4 Joe Gibbs Racing cars led at least 50 laps.
That's
at least,
wild.
Keep this in mind, that's at least 200 laps. Obviously, it's more than, but that's at least 200 laps led in a 312 lap race.
That's crazy.
That
is crazy.
Absolutely
That's
nuts.
crazy.
Bell was leading Chris Buescher by more than 5 seconds at the end. Buescher was second. Ty Gibbs third. He just, when they came down for that last pit stop, he took only right side tires, so only on 2 new tires. He was a sitting duck. Brad Keselowski in there as well with Ryan Blaney, Ross Chastain. Martin Truex Jr., who had to come in and get a splash of gas, was able to recover and get back up into the top 10. Michael McDowell, Chase Briscoe, Tyler Reddick fill out the top 10. Final top 10. 4 Toyotas, 5 Fords, 1 Chevrolet. Well, I guess we figured out whether or not Ford and Toyota have performance in their cars.
Correct.
4 races, 4 different winners. They're locked into the playoffs. In seed order, they are Kyle Larson, William Byron, Daniel Suarez, and Christopher Bell. In on points, Ryan Blaney, Martin Truex Jr., Tyler Reddick. Ty Gibbs, Ross Chastain, Denny Hamlin, Chase Elliott, Kyle Busch, more on him in a bit, Alex Bowman, Bubba Wallace, Austin Cindric, and Chris Buescher. Buescher holding a 2-point edge on Michael McDowell for that 16th and final playoff position. Again, I expect a lot of changes as we go on through the course of the season because, let's face it, we got places like Bristol this weekend, COTA next weekend. Oh, there's that little 2.66 mile tri-oval about, 15, 20 minutes west of us here?
Yeah. Give or take.
That all those 3 are coming up here in the next 4 or 5 weeks. So, yeah, a lot of changes about to take place in the standings.
Quite a bit.
As far as this weekend, specifically today, as we air live on Saturday, we begin with Formula E. They're back in the Western Hemisphere. They were in Mexico City to begin the year. Now they're in the Sao Paulo, Brazil for the Sao Paulo E-Prix, an 11-turn, 1.82-mile-long road course. I thought the race began about 20 minutes ago. Actually, it turned out the qualifying began about 20 minutes before we went on the air. Let's go ahead and run that down real quick.
They
What do you got?
are not done yet. They're in
Still not done.
Qualifying dual quarterfinals.
Okay. And then they're going to get into the race, I think if I remember correctly, 11 a.m. Eastern, 10 a.m. Central Time.
Yes.
Now, here's the thing. CBS Television, CBS Sports, has the right to televise it, right?
Yes, CBS Sports.
Remember what month this is? And if you're in the United States, you've heard of this little thing that they like to nickname March Madness?
Yeah, that's getting ready to crank up next week.
Yeah, well, actually, conference tournaments are going on right now.
Yeah, they officially end tomorrow.
But because of all the conference tournaments that CBS Sports has the rights to air, they're actually not going to show the Formula E race until Tuesday evening at 10 p.m. Eastern, 9 p.m. Central Time.
Let's see. CBS has the Big Ten. Fox has
Fox has the Big Ten.
Fox has the Big Ten.
CBS has Big 12.
Fox has Big East.
Big East, I'm sorry.
CBS
One of
has
those
Big
bigs.
12. ESPN, ABC, SEC Network has, of course, SEC and the ACC.
Mm-hmm.
So
What are they
why
showing?
are we?
They showing CUSA, AAC? They're not showing AAC. ESPN had AAC.
CUSA, I'm pretty sure, is on CBS Sports Network.
Okay.
AAC, I think, is on CBS Sports Network as well.
Okay. Either way, they're putting basketball in front of Formula E.
Yeah.
So, yeah, if you want to see the Formula E race, wait until Tuesday evening. Or don't worry about it. Then we got the Craftsman Truck Series in action tonight. Bristol Motor Speedway, that's where he's going to be, running the Weather Guard Truck Race, 250-lapper. It'll air on Fox Sports 1 and MRN Radio at 8 p.m. Eastern, 7 p.m. Central Time. Assuming, of course, that you don't have the requisite Chattanooga construction, you might make it there in time.
I'll get there in time. Don't worry. I'll get there in time.
The only other race this weekend belongs to the Cup Series. They're taking to Bristol as well. They're going to compete in the Food City 500 on Fox and PRN Radio. That's tomorrow afternoon, 3:30 p.m. Eastern, 2:30 p.m. Central Time. Xfinity, Formula One, Indycar, the NHRA are all off this weekend, and it's kind of nice. I mean, would I mind seeing the Cup Series run on dirt? No. But I'm kind of glad that they're not throwing a whole bunch of dirt back down on Bristol Motor Speedway. I will not miss that.
Eldora.
Yeah. Go run a dedicated dirt track, would you? When we come back, Roush Fenway-Keselowski, we told you last week, appealed some penalties. There's an update on that. We'll tell you about it next.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. Two tires only, and back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Yeah, let's get into it, shall we? Now, last week we were talking about how at Phoenix Raceway, the 17 crew, Chris Buescher's car, had a wheel come off. And NASCAR rules basically state that if you have a wheel come off when you're not on pit road, the jackman and the tire changer in charge of said wheel get suspended for 2 races. I thought that was a hard and fast rule. Okay? But then as we kind of started to get into everything, you realize something. Buescher brought that 17 down pit road on lap 10, got 2 tires, and then on lap 27, the right front came off, ending his day. You and I talked about this at length last week.
Right. Yeah.
If it had been a loose lug nut,
It would have come off quicker.
It would have come off much faster.
I don't get this. I still don't get this.
Okay. But either way, because the wheel came off while they were on the racetrack, Jack Mann and the front tire changer got suspended for 2 races each. Well, RFK Racing appealed, and they were able to go from Vegas to Phoenix and crew the car last weekend. And then Monday, RFK Racing informs NASCAR that they're dropping said appeal, said that the pair wouldn't be with the 17 at Bristol this weekend or at COTA next weekend. So here's the question. Why are you dropping the appeal? Now, there's gamesmanship to a certain extent. Obviously, Brad Keselowski said last week in Phoenix, quote, to bring in a new tire changer and a new jack man, it's a major undertaking. Remember, they were on the West Coast swing 2 races in. At least now they're in Bristol. It's a little bit easier to say, okay, you guys sit at home. We got backups. But Brad continued, quote, these guys are really good. They're highly skilled athletes, most of them college athletes that have played for quite some time. And by the nature of where the race teams are, we don't carry a depth chart of people that you wish you could carry. It's just too expensive. So you'd like to have as much time as possible to bring somebody up to make sure you don't have the same problem again. You want to have an extra week of practice of working out whoever that new guy is going to be and the jitters that they might have before they jump over the wall in front of 100,000 some fans with a car that's moving 50, 60 miles an hour. You want to get every little bit of time you can with that person, especially if it's 2 people. I think we're working through that right now. And, of course, that was said early this week. Now, the replacements are going to be Travis Judas and Samuel Wright, tire changer and jackman, respectively. Those guys have some experience. Back when they had the 60 car out for the Daytona 500, those 2 guys were in those respective roles then. But I still ask the question. I don't see why they dropped the appeal, because I get it. A wheel came off, and that is a problem.
Yeah.
But it wasn't the problem of the jackman and or the wheel changer, because as you noted, if it's a loose lug nut, that tire's coming off a heck of a lot quicker than 17 laps later.
It's coming off within 2 laps. Within 2 laps.
So that means something broke, which is beyond the scope of what the jackman and or the tire changer can do.
I guarantee you what probably broke and gave, those locking nuts on the wheel have little tiny springs on them. And when you get them to a point, them springs lock.
They're supposed to.
They're supposed to lock. If them springs didn't lock or those springs actually just gave up, that's not fault of the jackman or the tire man or the tire changer. I still don't get this.
I might have been willing to go ahead and see the appeal out.
I would have.
I can see the jackman not being suspended. He doesn't have anything to do with the lug nut. He jacks the car up.
Here's where they bring that in.
Yeah, there you go.
Here's where they bring that in at. When that jack is dropped, that's an immediate signal to your driver. Go.
Yeah.
That's the immediate signal.
If you know that you're taking 2 tires, your signal as the driver is when the jack drops.
Because the crew chief or
I get that.
Crew
Okay.
chief and or the spotter will tell the driver, go on the jack. Go on the jack drop.
Yeah.
However you want to word it.
If I'm the jack man and Matt's the tire changer and I drop that jack before he's done putting that lug nut off and you take on or you take off, that lug nut's not affixed.
Nope.
That problem technically is mine because I didn't give him the time to affix the lug nut problem.
That is true.
Okay.
Hey, that's what we're here for. We're here for educational purposes.
Yep.
Let's see. Formula One and Indycar have long had this kind of weird relationship, but as we're seeing it now, we're seeing a lot more crossover. You know, the Marcus Ericssons and the Romain Grosjeans and so on and so forth, right? Mm-hmm. Well, suddenly we're starting to see it a little bit more when it comes to NASCAR as well. Not necessarily Formula One. I mean, obviously we talk about Shane Van Gisbergen coming over from Australian supercars to come to the U.S., and now he's racing NASCAR, but just like last year, 2311 Racing is going to bring back ex-F1 driver Kamui Kobayashi. He's going to race for them when the Cup Series heads to COTA later on this month. Got a picture of what they looked like last year. Japanese native made his NASCAR debut for 2311 at COTA a year ago, finished 33rd in the number 67 Toyota. Again, that's the car that they introduced last year for the race. I'm sure it's going to look fairly similar. I don't know who the sponsor is. The car and driver reteamed as he hopes to bring back a better finish. 33rd, not quite what he was hoping for. Thanks to Toyota for the look at Kobayashi, as you see right now on CRN Live on YouTube.
It's probably going to be pretty close to what that is, right?
I would imagine. But again, that's Toyota has introduced a new body since then. That's really going to be about your biggest difference, and then it depends on who the sponsor is.
Yep.
Which I'd be shocked if it wasn't Toyota Gazoo Racing. Stewart Haas Racing showed off a car for Noah Gragson that he's going to run this weekend at Bristol Motor Speedway. Now, why in the world were we going to show you this particular car? By the way, thanks to Stewart Haas Racing for a look at the 10 as it's going to run this weekend at CRN Live on YouTube. Well, it's because Matt and I said when they signed Noah Gragson that we figured there were going to be a number of different sponsors that were going to come on board with him. Most notably Black Rifle Coffee Company. They were one of the first ones that signed on board. Well, Black Rifle Coffee Company's got a partnership with who?
That would be Bass Pro Shops.
And we were sitting here wondering when in the world Bass Pro Shops was actually going to show up. There you go. There's the Bass Pro Shops look on the hood, on the side with Ranger boats on that flank right above the rear tire.
Okay, I have officially 29 minutes left for me in today's show. Out of things that I know we're going to hit before I leave, I'm 1 for 1.
There you go.
I'm 1 for 1.
We figured this was going to be happening soon. We just didn't know when. And yeah, you felt that it was going to be Bristol. I have to admit. In addition, Stewart Haas Racing is partnered with a company called Truewerk, Truewerk.
Sounds like a name to a bad rap album.
Kind of. These guys are a direct-to-consumer performance workwear company. The pairing's going to result in all Stewart Haas Racing employees being outfitted in Truewerk performance wear, whether they're in the shop, at the track, in the gym, or pretty much anywhere they're going to go sporting the SHR logo.
I'll get a visual in about 6 hours what it looks like.
There you go. As a part of the deal, the company's set to be the primary sponsor for the number 41 of Ryan Preece when we return to Daytona later on this year. MBM Motorsports is well known as an Xfinity Series operation, but we have seen them from time to time in the Cup Series. But the last time we actually saw them in the Cup Series was last year when they pulled out a number 55 car for the Geico 500 at Talladega. And actually, that was not last year, that was 2022. Mm-hmm. The team announced just a couple of days ago, as we air live on Saturday mornings, Thursday, that they were going to pull in Timmy Hill to pilot the number 66 Ford Mustang in hopes of getting the car into the race at COTA next week. We'll take a look at the car here on CRN Live on YouTube, thanks to MBM Motorsports. This is what that car looked like in 2022. Mm-hmm. Don't know who the sponsor is going to be for next week. They didn't announce that. The last time the 66 attempted to make a Cup Series race was the 2022 Daytona 500. Timmy Hill did not put that thing on the front row during front row qualifying and unfortunately missed making the race through the duels, and they took it home. So this will be the first time, and I haven't seen the list, entry list for COTA.
Strong. It is strong.
So is he going to have to qualify? Or is there room for him to be able to get into that race?
I think he's going to be able to squeeze in by one car.
Barely. Just barely.
Yep.
Another week, another pit crew change for Kyle Busch. Huh? Yeah, I just found out about this morning. What's old is new again is this Daytona 500 Jackman Josh Sobecki is back on the 8 car as the Jackman. He'll be joined by Michael Russell, who returns to be the front tire changer. Shiloh Windsor, who changed the front tires last week at Phoenix, now moves to changing the rear tires this weekend at Bristol.
Yep.
Can't tell the players without a scorecard. And now the scorecard is all marked up. 8 car.
Yeah, leave something alone. I mean, you're 4 races in. Leave them alone. Or practice harder through the week.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out where's the disconnect here.
I don't know. I can't even figure it out.
And they didn't have a great weekend last weekend at Phoenix.
No.
But I'm not necessarily going to put that on the crew.
No, that's a car problem.
Yeah, I mean,
that was a car problem.
You whiff on setting up the car right off the bat, and you're going to be chasing it all day long.
Sure.
No doubt. North Wilkesboro Speedway is back from the doormat. Obviously, we know that. Got a facelift last season just in time to host the 2023 All-Star race, but Speedway Motorsports Incorporated says, you know what? We're not done. We want to continue to hold races at this historic track in Western North Carolina. So they said, hey, NASCAR, we're going to do a whole lot of stuff to upgrade this facility. And NASCAR said, okay, good. We'll give you back the All-Star race for 2024, plus you'll get a Craftsman Truck Series race as well. Well, we knew it needed a repave. The last time this track had been repaved was what? Early 90s?
Late 80s, early 90s.
Late 80s, early 90s?
Yeah.
So we knew it needed a repave, plus you had gone and seen it before they actually started all this refurbishment. Mm-hmm. And while it was in good shape, it wasn't in great shape. It was kind of like you and I back in 2018 going and looking at Rockingham. Mm-hmm. It was in good shape, but it wasn't in great shape. What we could tell was that there were cracks in the asphalt at Rockingham where weeds and or grass was kind of growing up through the cracks. Mm-hmm. Same thing in North Wilkesboro, pretty much, right?
Yep.
Okay, you got to clean all that stuff up. And, of course, once you start getting to the point where you're cracking all that and you're putting as much pressure on the track surface as you are with race cars, it's going to start to come apart sooner rather than later. So it got a repave. Fans, drivers, kind of worried that repaving the short track would hurt the racing. Well, Wednesday, Goodyear held a tire test there. The drivers who were there said that the track still has character, but yep, it's different. Joey Logano represented Ford, William Byron represented Chevrolet, and Ty Gibbs representing Toyota. NASCAR each tested, between NASCAR and Goodyear, they each tested several compounds that Goodyear brought to see what might work best. All three were generally complimentary of the new asphalt there. We'll quote two of them. Joey Logano first said, quote, they did a good job. There's still some character. It's still a unique shaped racetrack. It's a pretty big bump down in turn 1, I think, where the wall was out too long and they cut that down. It's kind of an interesting area. And there's a huge bump that they left in turn 4, which does kind of upsets the car. And I don't think that's bad. I'm okay with it.
Yeah.
That's something that made this race so cool in the past is you had a lot of character. It's bumpy. You're forced to move around them because it was challenging. William Byron checked in, noted that he, Logano, and Gibbs pretty much stuck to the preferred racing line because no rubber had been worked into the track. It was brand new. Then he added this, quote, I think the racing could actually be pretty exciting with a repave on a short track, but yeah, it won't have the style of comers and goers, I don't think. It'll be like the guys who are up towards the front are going to be racing hard. There's probably going to be more wrecks. Well, I'm not so certain about that because here's the thing. We saw that last year. Mm-hmm. We didn't see a whole lot of coming and going last year during the All-Star race.
No.
And the truth of the matter is if you got a handle on that track, you were gone. Witness the winner of the All-Star race, Kyle Larson.
That is a characteristic of Wilkesboro because if people will remember one of the last cut races that were there, Jeff Bodine lapped the field.
Mm-hmm.
Lapped the field. So it happens.
This might actually bring the racing a little bit closer together because as you and I well know, and racing fans everywhere well know, mm-hmm. you repave a track, even notwithstanding the bump that Joey Logano was talking about going around turn 4. The traction amps up that much. I mean, to the nth degree, especially when you're on new tires.
A lot of grip, 1. 2, it's going to open up another lane. There's probably going to be a lot more side-by-side racing instead of the single file run around the bottom. You got to move somebody to get somewhere.
Yeah.
And as well, too, I saw video from the test, trucks and cup. They're 2 seconds faster than last year, 1. 2, all of them are on the chip before you go in the corner.
Yeah.
You're on the chip. So therefore that tells you there's a ton of grip out there and you're able to stay in the throttle a lot longer.
Yeah. And just because these 3 guys stuck in the preferred racing line, it isn't going to take long for the trucks and or the cup cars, once they get out there and they start doing a little bit of practicing and qualifying and get ready to go out there and go racing, they're going to start working in a second lane.
I think the track's going to rubber up pretty quick.
Yep, I agree.
Now, this next story, I'm now 2 for 2.
Yep. And that next story, by the way, we're going to get to after we take a break here. Yep. But I'll give you a tease. Because if you've been a long-time listener to this show, there's been a hashtag out there for social media that guy right there has been just pushing so hard for. And he's about to get his wish. What's the hashtag and what's the wish? Stick around. We'll tell you when we come back. We got a long way to go here. He's got a long way to go and a short time to get there. but at least he'll be able to talk about this little hashtag bit next on CRN.
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network.
Callie's Love Stuff.
Fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Yeah, we're back indeed. Thank you very much for sticking with us. We do appreciate you joining us here. And as we were talking about, for the past couple of years, Matt has been enamored of this idea of bringing one particular television racing announcer to call a race at Talladega Superspeedway. And he's been trying to get this hashtag #DiffyTodega going on what I now call Twix, the former Twitter/X, which, by the way, I finally waded into that water. If you wish to follow me, which I don't post a whole lot, but you can, at Steve West CRN.
Yep.
I've got, 8 followers. Big deal. I don't care. So that means that this guy that you're about to see on CRN Live on YouTube, apparently somebody was listening at NBC, and or maybe they're about to make some massive changes in the NASCAR coverage because, as we talked about earlier on this year, Dale Earnhardt Jr. is gone. Effectively, as of right now. Dale Earnhardt Jr. doesn't have a deal to go on television this NASCAR year.
Nope.
Next year, he signed a deal to cover or help cover the 10 races that Amazon Prime and TBS will run in the middle of the year. And it's a deal that also puts him on Amazon Prime for any practices and qualifying that they're going to do, which will all be on Amazon Prime in the first half of the year when Fox has it. And then when it goes to NBC later in the year, TBS, TNT, whoever it's going to be.
Warner Brothers.
Warner Brothers is going to be showing the practice and the qualifying sessions then, as opposed to putting them on NBC or USA. And Dale will cover those. So he'll actually get more exposure next year than he will get if he had been just on NBC. But again, this bit of stuff here means that they're moving all kinds of stuff around. So Lee Diffie will pick up as the lead announcer for the Cup Series at some point in time after the 2024 Olympic break. All right. So here's where you go. We go from Fox to NBC in what? Late June? Mid-June?
Yeah, somewhere in there.
Okay. From there until we get to the Olympics break, NBC's putting Rick Allen as your lead announcer for both Xfinity and Cup Series coverage. Then we go to the Olympics break. Now remember, we're still in IndyCar at that point in time. IndyCar didn't wrap up their season until mid-September. And Lee Diffie's their lead announcer for IndyCar on NBC. So we don't know exactly when Lee Diffie's going to take over the seat. He may do a couple of fill-in races before IndyCar season ends, as the schedule allows. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know. But figure by late September, Rick Allen is going to be Xfinity Series only, and Lee Diffie's covering all the rest of the races on NBC for their NASCAR coverage, which means Diffie to Dega. He called it.
You're 8 pounds, 6 ounce, baby Jesus. Thank you. Thank you. Dude, this is going to be the broadcast at Talladega alone is about to go through the roof.
Yeah.
And somebody, anybody that is within the staff walls at Talladega Superspeedway alongside myself and him, please, I'm begging you, for the fall race, get the big one on the boulevard back and make this man the master of ceremonies.
Oh, please do that.
For the love of humanity and mankind,
You want to
please do
talk
this.
about just baptism by fire for Lee Diffie.
This is baptism by 25,000 blowtorches.
Yeah. Yep. And here's the thing, and I have made no bones about this. I am technically the lead tower announcer for Talladega Superspeedway.
Yes.
But NASCAR has decided in their infinite wisdom, I can't think of a better phrase for it that allows me to stay on the air, that they need a national announcer.
Their philosophy is, if it ain't broke, fix it.
Sure. But in this case, I got to admit, there's a part of me that actually is not terrifically unhappy, because I can allow him to go do whatever it is that he's going to screw up. And I can go out into the hallway while NBC's in coverage, because we know a trick.
Yeah, we do.
Where our PA booth is, as we look out on the track, to our left is NBC television. Fox in the spring, NBC in the fall. To our right is the Motor Racing Network. While the Motor Racing Network will shut their door, for the most part, NBC doesn't.
No, it stays wide open.
Stays wide open.
Both rooms.
So I could actually just step out into the hallway and just walk a few paces down and just listen.
Good.
And I will. Be forewarned.
I'm sorry, but people may disagree with me, and I personally don't care. From an overall current roster of overall motorsports broadcasters, he's top 2. That counts F1, IndyCar, NHRA, and NASCAR.
Yeah. I mean, if you're just looking, if you're looking at an overall overarching whoever's being the lead announcer for whatever series on whatever network.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, I follow where you're going.
Yeah, because the level of energy he puts within the broadcast to go out to how many ever television sets or even streaming devices now that it goes to, his energy level that he brings to Rick Allen, sorry, but he beats it.
Night and day.
It's night and day. He beats it.
And I'll say this, I have long been very, very praiseful of Mike Joy. And there's a reason for that. The guy knows what he's talking about. He's been doing this for so long.
Oh, yeah.
It's just there. He's so knowledgeable about it. Now, his energy level has dropped. But again, that's to be expected over the course of time.
Well, yeah.
Okay? But his knowledge is still there. And that's why I will continue to put Mike Joy at or near the top of every list that he is willing to start spitting out. And I'm sure you do too.
That's why I said top 2.
But yeah, Lee Diffie's right up there with it.
Oh, for sure.
Absolutely.
I mean it's fantastic.
One more note on television coverage here. Cup Series race at Phoenix. Again, big numbers over last year's race at the same track. Now, last Sunday's race, we saw over 4 million people watching the Cup Series race at Phoenix. That's a 19% jump over last year's spring race at Phoenix. And continues a run of 4 million plus people tuning in for each and every race so far this year. 6.6 at Daytona, and then we started doing Atlanta, Vegas, now Phoenix. Every single one of them has seen 4 million plus people tuning in. That was the most watched sporting event of the weekend last weekend. That continues a trend. But here's the other note of interest. Formula E did not run, but Formula One, Xfinity, NHRA, Indycar, only one of them broke 1 million viewers. And that was the Xfinity series. Indycar Live on NBC didn't break 1 million viewers. Formula One Live on ESPN on Saturday didn't break 1 million viewers. Now, part of this is the fact that Fox Sports delayed it, so they didn't show the NHRA event or finals from Gainesville live. They showed it on delay. It was what, 9 o'clock, 8 o'clock, something like 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central Time on Sunday evening.
Like that, yeah.
So that's part of the reason why NHRA didn't break 1 million viewers. But yeah, the only two to break 1 million viewers in motorsports last weekend were the Xfinity Series and the Cup Series. Mm-hmm. Kind of curious as to what changed from that last year to this year. And the only thing so far that me and a whole bunch of other people that are sitting there looking at these numbers and going, yes, thank you, but where are these numbers coming from? The only thing we can think of is the fact that the one change from last year, kind of like Netflix's Formula One Drive to Survive, Netflix had that NASCAR series where it actually took NASCAR seriously as opposed to some really stupid TV shows.
Funny story about that. I had 4 individuals Wednesday night down at our local church service.
Yeah.
Have you watched that NASCAR Netflix thing, man? I just finished it up. I'm going,
where have you been?
You're admitting to me in a Baptist church that you watched that when it's this bomb right and left, this bomb right and left. Every other word you hear is this. And you're like, huh?
Mm-hmm.
And when you actually sit there and say, yeah, I watched it. I'm in it. Huh?
Yeah.
Where you at?
Yep.
That was the reaction. Huh?
What was that, episode 3?
3, I think.
Yeah, episode 3, they show Talladega. And if you look really closely when they show the press box, you can see he and I in there.
We're there.
It's kind of fun. To the Xfinity Series, where Preston Pardus gets the chance to run a handful of Xfinity Series races this year, bringing his family-owned Pardus racing team in. They're going to field a car that has the number 50 on the side of it. He's run Chevrolet Camaros before, but didn't announce if he was going to be sticking with the Bowtie brand this year. The image that you're about to see of Preston Pardus on CRN Live on YouTube is thanks to Pardus Racing. His announcement, it is a Chevrolet. I figured it was, but, again, when it's not specified, you hold cards a little bit. The announcement that Pardus put on social media, quote, the 50 returns in the NASCAR Xfinity Series for 2024. Really excited to announce I'll be racing this season again for my small family-run team on a limited schedule. Can't wait to get behind the wheel in a few weeks' time at our first event of the year at COTA. It's the only race he's noted specifically at this time, but he is known as kind of a road course ringer. His best Xfinity Series finish to date came in 2021 when he finished 7th at the Charlotte Roval. Mm-hmm. So I would imagine road courses are certainly on his slate.
Oh, all of them.
Where else might he try? or would he do nothing but road courses?
If he does anything outside of road courses, I'm going to say Martinsville.
Okay. Short track that kind of drives like a road course.
Yep.
From there, you get this hotshot kid that we've been talking about, Connor Zilisch. Connor Zilisch has signed a multi-year deal, a development deal. We hear about this stuff fairly often, but not really related to NASCAR. We hear about it in Formula One. We hear about it a little bit in Indycar, and then they'll assign him to Indy Next, the former Indy Lights Series. Now we're starting to see it more and more when it comes to NASCAR, where Connor Zilisch has, again, a multi-year development deal with Trackhouse Racing. Part of that deal will allow him to make his Xfinity Series debut this year, but he's going to have to wait because Connor Zilisch isn't 18 yet. And to run Xfinity or Cup, he has to be at least 18. So he'll get his first start at Watkins Glen in September. He's going to drive the Junior Motorsports Star Car, the number 88 Camaro. Thankfully, he turns 18 just before it. Thanks to ARCARacing.com for the picture of Zilisch that you're seeing right now on CRN Live on YouTube. Zilisch is already an accomplished racer. He was part of the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona overall winning team. Yeah, no such 18-year-old age limit there. He also will get starts in the 88 at Kansas, Homestead, Miami, and Phoenix later this year. Multi-time karting champion, set speed records at 6 tracks in SCCA competition in the year 2021 alone. He got an ARCA start at Watkins Glen last year, running for Pinnacle Racing Group in their number 28. He qualified on the front row and finished the race in second.
There was some, the kid's good.
This kid's a hot shoe.
But there is some more news on him as well,
which we'll get back to in a moment.
Yeah.
And that brings us to another driver from overseas. We just talked about Kamui Kobayashi coming over to run in the Cup Series race for 2311, not 23x1 Racing, next weekend. Well, how about Daniel Kvyat, former F1 driver, getting a second try in NASCAR? Kvyat's had 2 stints in Formula One. Unfortunately for him, neither of them really stuck, so he spread to some other series, including running last year in the 24 Hours Le Mans and an LMP2 racer. Running for Lamborghini Lynx this year in the World Endurance Championship in the hypercar class, but he's going to get some time to come for the United States. He will run a race for SS Greenlight Racing, piloting their 07 Chevrolet Camaro at COTA. Again, this marks his second try at NASCAR. The picture you see here is from last year. We'll get to that in a second. 2022, he debuted in the Truck Series, got into 3 races for Team Heseberg. Remember them? Most people don't. He finished 36th twice and 39th in those 3 races, and now you know why we haven't heard from them really again. He also got a start with Sam Hunt Racing in the Xfinity Series at the Charlotte Roval in that car that you see the picture of right there on CRN Live on YouTube. We thank Sam Hunt Racing for that picture from last year. He had a much better time in that car when he finished 15th at the Charlotte Roval. So now he gets to go to COTA in a car fielded by SS Greenlight Racing. Now here's the question. Are they preparing the car?
I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Time will tell. We'll see. Let's go back to Zilisch here as we go to the Craftsman Truck Series news. Zilisch and Spire Motorsports, they announced yesterday, as we air live Saturday morning, that he's going to get into one of their trucks, and this is going to be next weekend at COTA. Guess who's not 18 yet?
Road course.
That's the difference. Maybe you can explain a little more.
Truck race for Truck Series only. For road courses and oval tracks that are 1 mile or less, if you're under 18, you're eligible to run.
And now you know the difference. So Zilisch will drive the number 7 Chevrolet Silverado at COTA, and word has they're going to have him back for the fall race at Talladega. And word is they're going to find a truck for him to run in October at Homestead, Miami. He will have sponsorship from Austin Hatcher Foundation at COTA at least, likely at Talladega and Homestead, Miami. This is a cool thing, by the way, the Austin Hatcher Foundation. Mm-hmm. It's for kids with cancer.
Yeah.
Very cool thing.
It's a very cool thing.
I wanted to mention that real quick. Go ahead.
You want to talk about baptism, another baptism by fire?
Let's throw you into the Truck Series at Talladega.
Truck Series at Talladega. Just go for it, kid.
Sure.
Go for it.
We're going to find out how good this kid is.
He's good. He's very good.
You know, this is like Cole Trickle at the beginning of Days of Thunder. Okay, you're good out there on the track by yourself. Let's see how you do in traffic, kid. I bet you he does pretty good. He's going to be one of those guys we're going to be watching from up there in the booth. He and I, very, very careful.
For sure.
I can't wait to see this.
For sure.
One more note here before we let this guy go. We don't throughout the season cover a whole lot of IMSA, but when there's big news, we got to do it. And in this case, Chip Ganassi Racing announcing that at season's end, they're going to be parting ways with General Motors and their Cadillac brand. That fits the category. We've got the Chip Ganassi Racing logo with Cadillac that you're going to see on CRN Live as soon as John pulls it up there. CGR fields one Cadillac in the IMSA GTP category and another in the World Endurance Championship Hypercar class. Both are going to fill out the 2024 season. But after that, and Chip Ganassi Racing has already made this announcement that this is going to be their final season pairing with General Motors and Cadillac, and they state that they don't have a manufacturer at this time to move to. I'm sure they're working on it.
I'm sure.
A statement from GM Mike Hull, Team Penske GM Mike Hull, read in part, quote, Chip Ganassi Racing General Manager Mike Hull read in part, quote, Chip Ganassi Racing has a fantastic history with GM. We would never close the book on General Motors in terms of the future. We just know that this chapter is ending. Team hasn't said even why they've decided to move on. But we can give you 3 guesses, and probably the first 2 don't count. Thinking it has to do with a little bit of cash.
Probably so.
But again, who are they going to? We don't know. And they haven't said. We'll keep an eye on it for you. We're going to let this guy go. Producer John and I are going to wade into hour number 2, right up to our necks, and see if we swim. Who knows? Maybe you need to call in. All right. He's going to head on to Bristol. We are going to continue on as we turn to the NHRA when we come back.
Don't touch that dial. The Championship Racing Network will be right back. 4 tires and 2 cans of fuel, and we're back to more racing action on the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in. Hour number 2 underway. And if you're watching on CRN Live on YouTube, you only notice that there's one camera. It's because Matt's gone. For those of you that missed hour number 1, he is on his way to Bristol Motor Speedway, where he's going to help out the number 32 truck as they work their way around the fastest half-mile track in NASCAR, and maybe in the world.
He's gone, so that camera is up for grabs, and if I put my face on it, it just breaks, so no.
Ladies and gentlemen, producer John back in the studio after a few weeks missing, mostly grabbing a whole bunch of overtime, which, hey, I understand that. So that means that this particular story John has kind of missed, but it seemed like about every week or every other week from the beginning, the first show of 2024, we were talking about HendrickCars.com coming in and sponsoring this car or that car in this series or that series. The most recent one was when they signed on to be Rajah Caruth's sponsor for the Craftsman Truck Series. First, it was for the first 10 races of the year, and then he performed so well in the first couple of races of the year that suddenly HendrickCars.com said, you know what? Yeah, we'll do the whole year. Heck with it. Well, now we find out HendrickCars.com, and we found this out just a couple of days before they ran the Gator National, so not quite a week and a half ago now. We found out HendrickCars.com is partnering with KB Titan Racing in the NHRA Pro Stock Car Division to sponsor Greg Anderson, 5-time division champion there. And this extends a partnership with Anderson that HendrickCars.com began back in 2021. If you've seen a HendrickCars.com look, think Kyle Larson on the 5 car for the Cup Series, you kind of know how the Pro Stock car entry looks. Kalitta Motorsports, their longtime partner DHL, they've signed a multi-year extension. They're going to keep them as a sponsor on the funny car of J.R. Todd. This marks the 17th year for DHL and Kalitta to partner up, beginning back in 2007 as a race car sponsorship only. But over time, that expanded out. Included some of Team Kalitta's and DHL's charitable efforts, some business-to-business networking for Team Kalitta, and some trackside experiences for DHL customers with Team Kalitta. So it's really gotten a heck of a lot, much more involved. Really, really cool stuff there. Top Fuel pilot Jordan Vandergriff has shown that he's no stranger to a microphone and a TV camera. He's appeared on 2 different editions of the inexplicably popular show The Bachelorette. He was on in season 19. He was also in season 9 of something called Bachelor in Paradise, whatever the heck that is. Now he's going to get a chance to join the NHRA and Fox team. Race coverage for last weekend at the Gator Nationals was on Fox Sports 1. Vandergriff was slated to be on camera during that coverage while also doing some things in the official NHRA social media pages. Vandergriff said last week, leading up to the season opener, quote, "This is a great opportunity for me to stay involved in the sport, and I'm looking forward to working with the NHRA on Fox and NHRA social media teams." He added it'll help him keep close to the on-track action while bringing some added exposure to the NHRA itself. Now, due to his reality TV appearances, this could help the NHRA, strangely enough, because about 80% of Jordan Vandergriff's own social media following is under the age of 34. And just like every other racing series on the planet, they're all trying to attract the younger viewers who can stick with them for years and years. We'll see if this works. Judging by the ratings, it didn't on the first one. Things leading up to 2024 season in the FlexJet Factory Stock Showdown division have been pretty quiet, but then there's David Davies III. He's going to set to get into his 3rd season of racing in the division of the Dodge Challenger Drag Pack. Got himself a new sponsor, one that we're actually somewhat familiar with here on CRN. We've worked with them before, Mission 22. National nonprofit agency that brings awareness and is trying to bring an end to veteran suicide. Davies, as an Air Force veteran himself, said his goal and the goal of Mission 22 very closely aligned. Very, very cool stuff. My question is this: how much longer will the FlexJet Factory Stock Showdown continue to run Dodge Challenger drag packs? Because effectively, they built the last one just before Christmas of 2023. The Dodge Challenger ain't no more until they come out with the new one, which has a body that evokes the Dukes of Hazzard days of old General Lee, but it ain't got a V8. They've chucked the Hemi. Stellantis, the parent company of Dodge now, has said, we'll give you an EV option, but you can also get an internal combustion engine option, which in this case will be a decently powerful one, I'll admit. Twin turbocharged V6 that they state will put out about 500 to 550 horses. Does that become their factory stock showdown entry? Time will tell. Meanwhile, the 2024 Mission Foods Drag Racing Series, set to feature 20 races this coming year. There was some thought that the 21st might be added. That is now switched to a plan for 2025. NHRA officials got to talking with Fox Sports, their official TV partner, announced it during the television coverage at the Gator Nationals that there will be a focus on a new national event for the 2025 season. They decided to push it back to next year because they wanted to make sure that all the different entities, the NHRA, the track, and the teams would all have the chance to get all their ducks in a row and have everything ready to go. But other than the announcement that they're planning on having a new national event, making it the 21st on the schedule for next year, we don't know where it's going to be because they stopped short of announcing it. Hopefully we'll find out soon. And some of the biggest news out of the NHRA, and I say some of the biggest news because this crossed over a whole lot because of who it was. And it likely came out of Tony Stewart Racing when it was announced that Tony was going to be stepping into the Top Fuel ride that his wife Leah Pruitt has been running while the pair concentrates on starting a family. Smoke made his debut last weekend at the Gator Nationals. All things being equal, could have been worse. He qualified 9th out of the 16, so he was middle of the pack in qualifying, which is not bad for really your first time in competition when, I get it, he's a veteran racer, but still, this is your first time at that level. Probably some jitters, some butterflies, maybe, to a certain extent. Again, qualified 9th out of 16, faced off against Justin Ashley in round 1. Now, Justin Ashley is well known within the Top Fuel circles as being one of the better guys when it comes to getting off the Christmas tree. In other words, his reaction times are fantastic. And Ashley had a .031. Smoke beat him. .021 reaction time.
I don't see many butterflies there.
Nope. Ashley did recover. He won the pairing, 4.414 ET to Smoke's 4.453. But you think about that. That right there, that's a photo finish at the end. So this is a guy, Smoke, who was running the top alcohol. This is top nitro, Top Fuel nitro. Last year it was top alcohol nitro. It's a slower division. It's a Lucas Oil Drag Racing Series. But that was his first year in that competition, and he claimed a handful of wins, and up until the last, I think he was eliminated after the second to last event of the year. But he was in the run for the title. As we go into it this year, because he qualified 9th, he's sitting inside the top 10 in Top Fuel points already. We'll see if it holds. It'll be interesting to watch. We'll keep an eye on it. Next weekend, Indycar heads out west. So they were running in Florida last weekend down in St. Petersburg. Good race. I watched it. And to sit there and watch Joseph Newgarden just suddenly school everybody. Yeah, it took some of the drama out of it at the end, but I'm one of those guys who will sit and marvel at the fact that because it doesn't happen every race, Formula One, it's intriguing to me to watch as a Joseph Newgarden or Scott Dixon or whoever it is pulls out to an 8, 9, 10-second lead gap at the end. That's just impressive. And I'll give NBC credit because they kept our attention by putting the cameras on where there was really, really tight racing. And in some cases, it was 3, 4, and 5 cars that were all battling for one spot by the time we got to the end of the race. It was really, really well done. Well, next weekend, they go all the way out west to Southern California to run Thermal Club. This is what they're calling the $1 Million Challenge. It's the equivalent of what we call in NASCAR the All-Star Race. Strange that happens in event number 2 for their year, but it's where it fit into the schedule. Okay. First non-points race for IndyCar, by the way, since 2008. Last time they had a non-points event in IndyCar, it's when they went down under. They went to Australia for an exhibition event at Surfers Paradise.
They put shrimps on the bobby.
Yeah, indeed. But because this is also an exhibition event, there's big money on the line, somewhat, again, similar to NASCAR's All-Star race, but they're going to set it up just a little bit different. Everything's going to start on Thursday. They're going to do a draw party. Now, Thermal Club is a private club where people buy in and they have the chance to take their own very, very high-priced cars out onto this privately owned race course. So they're going to have a draw party that will pair existing club members with each one of the 27 full-time cars. And that pairing will allow the club member to take part in most of the race weekend up to including team meetings, driver Q&A sessions with the media, race instructions, and of course, you get tips and a whole lot more. I'm sure more than one of them will be wide open when it comes to the tips because they're going to be like, I've been trying to figure out how to gain a second in my own car. I don't know how much that'll translate from IndyCar to your car, but hey, what the heck. That same draw will also divide the field into two different groups for qualifying, which will take place next Saturday evening, 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. local time. This is where each group will get 12 minutes of track time to set their fastest lap over the 17-turn, 3.06-mile-long course that they're going to use. That will set the lineup for the heat races that begin on Sunday morning. Heat races making a return to IndyCar for the first time since they were used at Iowa Speedway back in 2013. Each heat race is going to be a 10-lap race, or it will time out at 20 minutes. Laps under full course caution will not count, but the clock will continue to run. That's why we give you laps/time. That's going to start at 9:30 a.m. California time. Okay, then. Teams are going to get one set of sticker Firestone tires for the heat race. Pit stops will only be allowed if it's an emergency. Teams can petition IndyCar for a tire change, and if it's allowed, the tires that they change to must have been ones that were used during qualifying. Should a car make an unapproved change or one not approved by IndyCar, that car will be disqualified. No questions asked. Make sure you're on your P's and Q's, boys and girls. If you got to make a change, you better let IndyCar know that you want to make the change and get it approved. It's going to be 2 heat races. The top 6 from each heat will go into the final, a main event. So you're going to have a 12-car field. Final's going to be a 20-lap race divided into 2 10-lap sprints with a 10-minute break in between. During that break, the teams can fuel the car. They can change the front and or rear wing angle. You can adjust tire pressure, but not the tire. And you can attend to the driver. As the cars get ready for the second half, 40 seconds of push to pass for the first half, they'll refill it to 40 seconds for the second half. If a tire is needed in the final, a tire from the heat race has to be used. So you only get 1 set of stickers for the heat, 1 set of stickers for the main. After that, you got to use scuffs.
You better conserve your tires.
Scott Dixon's looking really, really good right now because he's a guy who knows how to conserve his tires. First place takes home a cool $500,000. Second place, not too bad, $350,000, $250,000 for third. Fourth gets $100,000. If you finish fifth, $50,000. The rest of the field, $23,000 each. Now we mentioned that all 27 full-time cars are going to be there. Even if you don't make the final or the main, you will still get $23,000 because you went out there and you tried.
That's enough to put gas in the tank.
Pretty much. That's enough to fuel the hauler to get you out there. But you got to be out there anyway because the next event after Thermal Club, Acura Grand Prix of Los Angeles. So there you go. Might help you house the team for a few days until that race.
Stay right here for more on the Championship Racing Network.
Espresso.
And back out to the track for more action on the Championship Racing Network.
Turning our attention over to Formula One here, got a bit of news to catch up on, and it became interesting. So we started looking at some of the news and notes from what happened last weekend at Saudi Arabia, and we noted it in the race recap at the beginning of the show. 18-year-old Ferrari reserve driver Oliver Bearman claiming 7th in Saudi Arabia in his very first ever Formula One race. British native was actually one of 4 British natives to claim a top 10 in Saudi Arabia. This marks the first time since 1968 that at least 4 British-born drivers made the top 10 of a Formula One race. Last time it happened was in that year's French Grand Prix. John Surtees, Sir Jackie Stewart, Vic Elford, Piers Courage, they each claimed top 10 finishes. Last weekend, George Russell, Bearman, Lando Norris, and Sir Lewis Hamilton in that order. Bearman also becomes the 68th driver in Formula One history to score points in his Formula One debut. And he's the 4th consecutive Ferrari driver to debut with points, but the first one to do it since 1972 when Arturo Mezzario pulled it off for Formula One, for Ferrari. This is one of those things where stats, you can get really off into the weeds with them, right? I mean, sitting here talking about the first time since 1972. What is this, Major League Baseball? Major League Baseball keeps stats on everything. You don't believe me? Go look it up. There's several encyclopedias out there that give you the history of Major League Baseball. Some of those histories will go so in depth that one of the things that was mentioned, for example, in the movie Field of Dreams, Archibald Moonlight Graham got into one game, never got to an at-bat, okay? That's actually based upon a true story. And if you were to go back and look up in the history of Major League Baseball, you can look up where there are players who have played and got one at-bat or never got an at-bat but were able to get out of the field. This sounds like that. I mean, we're keeping up with the fact that, 4 British natives finishing in the top 10 hasn't happened since 1968. Either way, congratulations to Bearman. The problem for him is the fact that he's really only filling in because of an appendicitis outbreak, and we got this weekend off in Formula One before they go to Australia. I don't think you're keeping the seat for Australia there, Oliver. So hope you enjoyed your time. But you also have said, you threw a gauntlet down in this particular case and saying, hey, listen, I'm ready for Formula One. We just hope you're not in over your head, because at this point in time, with Lewis Hamilton going to Ferrari next year, there's not a seat for you at Ferrari. Right now, the only other Ferrari customer that's out there, I mean, Sauber's there, but they're about to become Audi. So it's not like Ferrari's going to let you run over there for a whole lot. So the only other customer out there for Ferrari is Haas F1. How well did that work out for Mick Schumacher? Not that well. Other notes from Saudi Arabia, Max Verstappen has now won 9 races in a row. That ties the all-time record for consecutive wins, second most on the all-time list, one behind his own record of 10, which he set just last year. It was also Verstappen's 100th career podium finish. He's the 7th driver to claim that number. The win marks Red Bull's 115th win since they joined the series back in 2005. That's good for 4th all-time amongst all teams. That trails Ferrari, who has 243 wins all-time. McLaren has 183. Mercedes has 125. And with the win, Red Bull broke the tie that they were holding with Williams. Williams now drops to 5th with 114. Yeah, Red Bull's going to start to pull away on that one, boys and girls, because I'm sorry, Williams not showing me anything this year. Nor have they really for the past 6, 7. How many years have we been covering Formula One on this race? On this show? In its various forms?
Many.
Yeah. Williams hasn't really been fighting for a win.
And I was going to say that
since we started
you?
covering the series.
How does that surprise you today?
It doesn't. But there was a time for Williams when they were a winning organization. Formula One officials have been talking about how to shave some weight off of the racers. They also want to shrink the overall size of the racers down, both length and width. One of the ways that they were talking about late last year and into the off season was dropping the wheel size as well. couple of years ago, the series jumped from 13-inch wheels to 18-inch wheels. That was for the 2022 season. There's been some talk about them dropping back down from 18 to 16 inchers. That would save some weight, and you could possibly, I don't know, make them a little bit narrower or whatever. I don't know whether or not they will. Now, the jump from 13 to 18 inches allowed for a bigger contact patch for the tires. That showed an immediate increase in speed. But this time around, dropping down to 16 inches would mean that Pirelli, the official tire provider for the series, would now have to go into redo mode to come up with an entire new lineup of tires for the series. And they balked at it because it's not an inexpensive venture. The teams also told F1 about some concerns they had about their own challenges in adapting back to the smaller wheel and tire combination. According to motorsport.com, what will happen is that the series likely is going to keep the 18-inch wheels, but they might slightly resize the tires. How was not elaborated on. I don't know. We'll keep up on it. What are you going to do? You going to make them lower profile? Lower profile actually would probably make them a little bit heavier because then you'd have to increase the solidity of the sidewall. I don't know. We'll see. Time will tell.
I haven't a clue.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't either. And that's the sad part about it. These guys, I like watching the racing. The drama, man, they're overloaded with drama in Formula One. Good night. VCARB, Visa Cash App RB, the Red Bull sister organization, whatever you want to call them. I'm just going to call them VCARB because it's just easier. They have their base in Faenza, Italy, and that has been their home base since the team was founded as the Minardi operation way back in the late 1970s. But as time has gone on, of course, they got bought out by Red Bull. They became the sister operation, first known as Toro Rosso. Then they changed their name to AlphaTauri. Now they're Visa Cash App RB or VCARB. But over the course of time, ever since Red Bull bought the organization and made them the B team, more and more operations have been moved out of Italy and closer to the Red Bull racing headquarters, which are in Milton Keynes, England. The latest move, the Aerodynamics Group. Back in 2022, before that, AlphaTauri, Toro Rosso, whatever they were known, were borrowing other people's wind tunnels. Well, back in 2022, they began to share the use of the Red Bull wind tunnel that was on the property of Milton Keynes in England. But the employees were being shuttled back and forth between Italy and England. And I don't care how much money you got as an organization, sooner or later, that bottom line, when you're shuttling them back and forth between England and Italy, and you go, why are we spending so much on plane tickets? Oh, that's why. So now what they're going to do is end that because they are building a new campus for the aerodynamics department employees that will be built on a property that's right next to Red Bull's property in Milton Keynes, England. So now all they got to do basically is walk. Former Alpine CEO turned VCARB Formula One boss Laurent Mecchi stated this move was in the works long before he joined the organization late last year. He embraces the move because their old Aero HQ was much too small for what they were trying to do. Plus, in joining in with the Red Bull cousins, they state should help them when it comes to trying to attract new employees. Okay. Said it should be fully operational by the end of the year, which should be just about in time to help them for the 2025 season. My question is how much are they actually going to be able to copy the Red Bull body? Because part of the reason why those two teams are separate, you can only share so much information between teams, even if it has the Red Bull name on it. So I do kind of wonder exactly how much information is being shared between Red Bull and what I'm now calling VCARB. We'll find out. Speaking of soap operas, we told you about this, and really Felipe Massa is just not going to let this go. Felipe Massa has had a bee in his bonnet, a spur under his saddle, whatever you want to call it, really since the end of the 2008 season. Felipe Massa honestly believes that the 2008 F1 title should have been his. And because he is so firmly convinced that there was a conspiracy to have that pulled from him, that he has now filed suit in England seeking compensation for the monies that he felt like he would have made since that 2008 year, based upon the fact that he would have been an F1 champion. The Associated Press reported this week that they have gotten a hold of a document. This document shows that the 42-year-old Brazilian native filed his lawsuit in London, England, and is seeking the equivalent of $82 million U.S. in compensation and damages from the title that ended up in the hands of Lewis Hamilton, now Sir Lewis Hamilton. Now, the thing is he's not blaming Lewis Hamilton for this. It just so happens that Lewis Hamilton happened to be the beneficiary of all this. Thanks to MSN.com for the picture of Massa that you see right now on CRN Live on YouTube. As far as who is named in this suit, Massa's suit names the FIA, the Formula One Management Group, and Formula One's former CEO, Bernie Ecclestone. This is long before, remember, Liberty Media became the commercial rights holders of Formula One. In the process, not only is Massa seeking the monetary compensation, remember the equivalent of about $82 million in U.S. figures, but he wants the recognition as the rightful 2008 Formula One champion, which would also mean, by the way, that Sir Lewis Hamilton would then be relegated from tied with Michael Schumacher at 7 championships all time in Formula One. Now he'd be one behind with 6. I'm not really sure you're going to get that far.
How plausible do you think this is?
Not very. And we'll tell you why. Now, I will say this. Massa did put out a statement right after this got out. He said, quote, "I always said I was going to fight until the end." He's 42 years old. He's in pretty decent shape. He's got a ways to go in his life. Here's the details. We go back to 2008, Singapore Grand Prix, final race of that year. Massa's fellow Brazilian, Nelson Piquet Jr., who was driving for a separate team at that time, deliberately, he says, and Nelson Piquet Jr. admitted later, he deliberately crashed his Renault on lap 14 of that 61-lap event. It was a crash that triggered a safety car period that Massa claims benefited Fernando Alonso, who was Nelson Piquet Jr.'s teammate at the time. Fernando Alonso went on to win that race. Massa had his team call him in to do a pit stop, which they bungled. He couldn't recover, finishes outside the top 10, and if you're outside the top 10, 11th through 20th, or however many cars there are, you don't score a point. Only the top 10 scores points. Hamilton won the season title by 1 single point. So if he had finished 10th, they would have tied, and it would have gone to tiebreakers. And I looked this up. Based on the tiebreaker system that Formula One was using at that time, I go back to the whole, we got stats on everything on the planet. Who would have won the 2008 title based on a tiebreaker? Felipe Massa. If he had finished 9th and scored 2 points, he would have beaten Lewis Hamilton by 1 point.
But here's the thing. He took a pit stop, and his pit crew screwed up.
Yep.
He lost top 10
based upon
because of
that.
Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing. His team could have bungled that pit stop at any point in time during the race, regardless of whether Nelson Piquet Jr. whether Nelson Piquet Jr. crashed his car or not.
Exactly. So who's to say that he didn't take a green flag pit stop and totally screw it up?
Exactly. That's the thing about pit stops being performed by human beings. We're all fallible. Heck, all you got to do is listen to this past segment. How many times have I screwed up? I tried to call Nelson Piquet Jr. Nissan.
Twice.
Yeah. We're all human. These guys, these men and women who go and perform pit stops, and it doesn't matter what the series is, Formula One, Formula E, NASCAR's Cup Series, all the way down to the Whelen Modified Tour, NASCAR Europe, NASCAR Brazil, NASCAR Mexico, Pinty Series up in Canada, Indycar, Indy Next, or any of the IndyCar Series feeder ladder. The men and women who perform these pit stops in any series on this planet, they're human. They make mistakes. Sometimes it's big, sometimes it's small. Sometimes they can recover just like that. Other times, it's a massive problem, and it takes what could have been in Formula One a 3 to 4 second pit stop and make it an 8, 9, 10, 12, 15 second pit stop. But that's part of the reason why we love watching racing, is because all of this stuff combines into creating the drama that is racing. Felipe Massa cannot sit here and tell me, or anyone, especially the court in London, England, that his team would not have bungled that pit stop anyway, regardless of whether or not Nelson Piquet Jr. crashed that car. He cannot guarantee it.
And that's why I think he's going to fail.
And that's why he should fail.
But on the other hand, he has a point. But on the predominant hand, nah, you're not going to get it.
Yeah, it's why he should fail. Whether or not he will, I don't know. British court's a whole lot different, and I'm not a judge, and I don't play one on the radio or on CRN Live on YouTube. Here's Massa's suit. A little bit more from it. And again, this is from the Associated Press, who got a hold of this document, and they're just quoting what they found in the document. Massa's suit demands the money and, quote, a declaration that the FIA acted in breach of its own regulations in failing to investigate the circumstances of the crash promptly in 2008, and also, quote, a declaration that if the FIA had not acted in breach of its own regulations, it would have canceled or adjusted the results of the Singapore Grand Prix, with the consequence that Mr. Massa would have won the Drivers' Championship in 2008. Now, Massa hasn't been alone in this. The suit goes on to claim that the defendant's actions caused significant financial loss to the claimant, quote unquote. Bernie Ecclestone actually responded to this. He told the British Press Association that he actually agreed with Massa's filing. Quote, if he had asked me, I would have said it was the complete right thing to do to sue and to let an English judge decide what is right and what is wrong. I cannot say anything about the outcome and what will happen, but from his point of view, Massa's point of view, it is better that an English judge comes up with a verdict. It will be of more help for him. I don't know as it will. Now, if he were to do that here in the U.S., and again, I'm not a judge, but I do know this. Judge at one level, you can appeal it. Go to the appeals court. If you don't like it, you can appeal it all the way up to the Supreme Court. One would assume that you have something similar set up in England to where he could appeal it all the way up to the highest court in the land. But when are you going to give up? If one judge says no, what's your basis?
We will be right back with more on the Championship Racing Network. fuel only, fuel only. Go, go, go. We're back to the Championship Racing Network.
Welcome back in. We appreciate you joining us. And don't forget about us, by the way, on Wednesdays. We got that podcast that we just started. We did episode 2 earlier this week called Crossed Flags. You can check it out on several different ways. The most easiest one is as soon as we can post it up there, producer John does so, and he showed me how I can finally do it. We'll get it up there on Wednesday afternoon/evening. We start recording it about 2:30 or so on Wednesday afternoon. So by about 4 or 5 o'clock, it should be up there, called Crossed Flags. This edition of the show that we do on the weekends, 2 hours long. This one's more like 30 to 40 minutes. And we'll cover 2, 3, maybe 4 topics, depends on the week. This past week, we talked about the potential of Honda coming in to NASCAR. We even showed a couple of looks based upon pictures from a couple of years ago. And these were mock-ups that somebody worked up on an iRacing platform that showed an Accord and a Civic. I looked. I looked high and low. I could not find anybody who had done a Craftsman Truck Series mock-up of a Honda Ridgeline. But we said at the time, and Matt is a little less sold on Honda than I am. At this point in time, my arms are wide open. If you want to come into NASCAR, come on. Does it seem to make a little bit more sense because Nissan has a full-size truck versus Honda Ridgeline, which is more mid-size? Yeah, it does. But I'd be open to Nissan coming in as well. Both of them have motorsports histories. I mean, obviously, Honda, on the very, very surface of it, they're providing engines to both IndyCar and Formula One, plus they're involved in sports car racing and such. Nissan's involved in endurance racing. Wouldn't be that hard for them to come into NASCAR. But you want to talk about the most popular move of all time. If Stellantis could figure out what the heck they were going to do with the Dodge brand and they were to bring back Dodge, truth be told, that'd be the most popular move. Producer John's over there throwing up the rock sign.
Rock on, baby.
Here's the thing. He's not the only one that would like to see it. Okay? I'll be the first person to tell you that. He's not the only one that would like to see it. I'd like to see the Ram pickup truck sitting back there in the Craftsman Truck Series. And I don't care whether you bring back the Charger or the Challenger nameplate, to bring back one of those and run it in Xfinity and Cup Series competition, I'd be all about it. But at this point in time, I mean, we stopped and we thought about it. If you go back to the heyday of the number of marks that used to run in NASCAR in our lifetimes, okay, we go back to John born in 67, I was born in 68, Matt's a youngster, whatever. At one point in time, NASCAR was running 8 different nameplates. Go back to the mid-1980s. GM was running 4. The Chevy Monte Carlo, the Pontiac Grand Prix, the Oldsmobile Cutlass, and the Buick Regal. Then you went to Ford. They had the Ford Thunderbird and the Mercury Cougar. If you go back a little bit further, that's 6 right there. If you go back 8 more years, if you go back to the mid-1970s, we used to see Plymouth running. We used to see Dodge running. Chrysler's run before. That's all your American makes right there, save Cadillac and Lincoln. That was it. So at one point in time, we were running 8, 9 American-built marks in there. It's not that we don't have the ability to do it. We can. So Nissan, come on. Honda, come on. Dodge, tell Stellantis to get their thumb out of wherever they've got it hidden and figure it out. Because it would be a really popular move to have Dodge back in NASCAR. Extremely popular. And there's that one big meatball that's hanging out there. And I'm not saying that to be mean about it, but there's one big, humongous team that's sitting out there right now that doesn't have a contract for a car maker next year. Stewart-Haas Racing's contract with Ford is up at the end of 2024. You want to talk about a big get for any car maker? Go get Stewart-Haas Racing, especially if that's the first team that you come into NASCAR with. So we talked about that. We talked a lot about the whole Andretti Global soap opera. They're building that new headquarters. We talked about it last week here on the show. And yeah, we ripped into Formula One again. and their short-sightedness when it comes to not bringing them in. So we talked about that. So yeah, go back and check it out if you haven't already done so. Please do. It's up on CRN Live on YouTube right now. Just look for Crossed Flags, episode 2. Watch episode 1 while you're there. And watch episode 3 coming up this week. Self-serving promo. One last bit here for this week where we got Formula E, and Formula E already has 2 title trophies that they hand out at the beginning of the year. And this is very much like their sister series, Formula One. You have your driver's title, and you have your team or manufacturer's title. They call it manufacturer's title in Formula One. In Formula E, they call it the team title. And much like Formula One, depending on how the points break out, you can actually have a driver from one team win the title while another team claims that particular title for that year. It just kind of depends on the overall performance of the team as opposed to the performance of an initial driver. Again, kind of go off into the weeds. But here's the thing. Formula E has actually decided to add one more trophy. This new one is a manufacturer's trophy, and it will go to the supplier of the power unit of these all-electric racers. We have 11 teams on the grid right now in Formula E, but there are 6 makers of the battery packs that are used. The companies are Electric Racing Tech, Jaguar, Mahindra, Nissan, Porsche, and the aforementioned Stellantis. The points that will be doled out for each race will mirror the points that are handed out to the drivers or the teams. So first place will gain 25 points, second place 18, third 15, all the way down to 10th, which gets 1 single point. But remember, you got 11 teams, you got 6 battery makers, which means that depending on your customers, you could have 4, as many as 4, I don't know, maybe as many as 6. I haven't broken this down. I probably should have. But it depends on how many teams you're selling your battery packs to. Like Jaguar, we know they got their own team. Mahindra's got their own team. Nissan's got their own team. Porsche's got their own team. How many teams are they, though, providing these power units to? And if you're providing it not only to your own team, but to another team, you could have 4. Maybe you're selling it to 2 operations. Maybe you could have 6 inside the top 10. Now, all of a sudden, you're making some pretty serious points. See where I'm going with that? So, yeah, should be interesting. We'll keep an eye on it as we go throughout the year. So far, they haven't broken it down, but we'll keep an eye on it for you and let you know how that comes down. So that wraps up our news for this particular week. Now, the fun part of this is that in watching on our current feed on CRN Live on YouTube, we were just talking about it, and I don't know whether John was too busy and heard Matt mention it or not, but Mark talked about how there's a big race going on at South Alabama Speedway this weekend where they're going to be running the Rattler. And this is a pretty prestigious race. Pro late models tonight, 125 laps. Super late models, 250 laps on Sunday. And Matt was just talking about how we probably ought to try and go and check this race out. And I've heard about this race. It would be a cool road trip. Could be a fun CRN field trip. We can get producer John available to do it. We'd love to do it. Now, obviously, it's not going to happen this weekend because Matt's going to Bristol. I get to go to Talladega Superspeedway because the Alabama Wildlife Federation's doing a wild game cook-off. And guess who gets to be a judge again this year? I do. And we're going to start that at about 3 o'clock. Producer John, he's got to go to work. So we're basically going off into 3 different wind directions here between us. So the Rattler is not in for this week. But yeah, next year, might just have to plan this out. So that's one thing that we're talking about there. I love the comments talking about this Felipe Massa thing. The silicone chip inside Massa's head's got to switch to overload. That's a fantastic quote. Appreciate that. That's good stuff. And I'll add this as well. We've started to go worldwide because Athena's on, and Athena, we've told you, she's out of Europe. Greece specifically, yes. And we cover the series that we cover on a regular basis. And we have a lot of fun, and we talk about how busy it can be. She goes much more in depth on the number of races that are going on all around the world. So it's worth looking through the comments on the chats that we have during CRN Live on YouTube. It's a whole lot of fun. It really is. So, yeah, I would implore you, even if you're listening to us on the flagship radio station, please add in CRN Live on YouTube, if nothing else, just to check out the chat. Because it's a lot of fun. It's a lot of interaction. Matt, myself, producer John, we're all there. We'll all see it. And Matt and I certainly will comment. Producer John will throw in his 2 cents from time to time.
When I can afford it.
But yeah, exactly. So yeah, we have a whole lot of fun on there, and I'm not going to implore you. I'm not going to beg you. I'm just going to say, hey, that option's there, and it's a lot of fun, and it's another way for us, because we don't have the ability at this point in time to be able to take phone calls. I'd love to. Now, we can do interviews, but we just can't take phone calls throughout the course of the of the show, because we don't have the infrastructure to be able to do that. It has to be specifically set up to be able to go and do an interview.
Yet.
Yeah. We're working on that. Because we got to talking to our boss, who helped us put this whole podcast thing together, and he says he's got big plans for us. And I believe it, because I've worked for him now for a little over 2 years. And all those big plans that he was talking about when I first got hired, 90% of them have come to fruition. It's just amazing how it's been working. So he's certainly pushing to do some pretty big things. Can I detail it? No, I can't, because I don't have details to give you. I apologize. But yeah, we're looking at doing hopefully some pretty big things here in the very, very near future. But yeah, we're having a good time, and we like it. And again, it's the whole growth of this. I mean, from our flagship station here, which has been great support for us over the course of, how many years have we been here now?
I don't know. I lost track of time.
I think we've been here for 2+ years now.
Oh, at least.
Yeah. And Grady has been just fantastic.
Gotta love Grady.
Yeah. And he was the one that got us, he kind of saved us and brought us to our previous home. And he was able to bring us over to here and keep us rolling. And we can't thank Grady enough, and the folks here at the Mountain enough, for being our home and our flagship for the main show of the Championship Racing Network. We really do appreciate it, and we appreciate the support when it comes to the podcast, which the two companies that are doing this could be considered to be in competition, but they're not really. They're not in the same radio market necessarily, right. So that's why. And both of them seem to be fairly okay with the fact that we're crossing the street, so to speak, on both ends. But I honestly believe it's because we're bringing quality content that is, it's just different enough from anything else that is offered here on 95.1 The Mountain or through Cumulus Media. So between Lake Broadcasting and Cumulus Media, we hear, all three of us, myself, and I'll speak for Matt and producer John on this as well. We can't thank everybody enough for being as supportive as they've been over the course of this time of this show. Maybe the most supportive of the groups that we have worked with.
Yeah, I'll let you put those words in my mouth.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Maybe the most supportive of the groups that we have worked with since this show began. One name ago, and 3 radio station groups ago?
So many.
I know. It was funny, my boss, and I'll call him out by his first name, James. We talked about it in the hallway, and he just looked at me and said, I hope you're in this for the long haul. And I looked at him and I said, dude, I've been doing a version of the show for about 15 years now. Trust me, I'm in it for the long haul. We appreciate you being in it for the long haul very, very much, listening to us here on the Championship Racing Network, whether it's on the flagship station or checking us out on CRN Live on YouTube, however it is that you're doing it. Again, Saturday mornings, the big show, the 2-hour show. Wednesdays, Crossed Flags, the podcast. Make sure you check them both out. Comment. We love it. Subscribe to the page. We appreciate it if you do that. It's free. Doesn't cost you anything. So bring it on. We appreciate you. We'll talk to you again Wednesday on Crossed Flags. And again, next Saturday, right here on the flagship station with CRN, the big show, the Championship Racing Network. Y'all have a great week. Enjoy the racing. We'll talk to you next week and throughout the week right here on CRN.
This has been a presentation of the Championship Racing Network.